Sweet potato casserole is a classic at Thanksgiving, and this one with a quick caramel sauce is one of my favorites. It has a pecan streusel, chunks of big sweet potato, flavor, sweetness, and yet perfectly savory. It's gonna be on your table. Let's make it. So for Thanksgiving, we often do sweet potato casseroles. Sometimes they're the mashed ones, sweet potato souffles. This is pretty much a pared down one that my mom made often, not just Thanksgiving, but it really is delicious, and it starts with, you guessed it, sweet potatoes. So I'm peeling some sweet potatoes, and I know we're gonna have a lot of questions. Yams, sweet potatoes. These are sweet potatoes, but you know what? It will work with yams too. The thing is, what we love about them is what? That they're sweet, they have that rich, dense flesh inside of them, and they're just delicious. Now, I know some people don't like sweet potatoes, so often at Thanksgiving, we have multiple types, and that's the point. What I like about this recipe, I would say it's slightly easier than some of the ones, because we're not gonna mash these. We are peeling them in the beginning to cook them, but then that's pretty much, to me, most of the work. Otherwise, it's pretty much dumping things together and being ready. Now, what I am doing is cutting these in some big 1/2 to 3/4 inch chunks. So I'm first just slicing them across, and then I'm taking those slices and I'm cutting them, and it all depends on the size of the potato, but I'm cutting them in somewhat large bite-sized pieces, and that's what I like, and I think that's kind of the magic of this recipe. It's more one that can be done quickly, and that's the beauty of it. You know, at Thanksgiving, we don't have to have each dish take tons of time. This one doesn't. It actually comes together pretty quickly. Somewhat minimal ingredients, really. That's what I love. So I'm putting all the potatoes in there, and now what I wanna do is take them over to the stove here, and we're gonna start putting water on them. Now I want the water to cover them, because what we're gonna do is let it come up to a boil, and then we're gonna let it just simmer and cook the potatoes. I'm gonna add a little pinch of salt here, just to make sure they're somewhat seasoned. We'll be good to go. The potatoes are cooked, and I just am finishing draining them. Now, the one difference with this than mashing potatoes, I'm not quite cooking them until they're mashable, because these are gonna now finish cooking in the oven and finish roasting in this pan with all that goodness we're gonna put with them. So I'm gonna put them right into this awaited greased pan. Isn't this is the joy. So usually if you were gonna make a potato casserole, you would be mashing these, doing a whole dance, and you know what? We don't have to. Instead, if you look at these, I'm just gonna spread them out somewhat even here. If you look, they're somewhat, like here, I'm just gonna take one and pierce it so you can see how that pierces easily, but when I get to the center, there's maybe just ever so slightly a little bit of resistance. That's good, that's what we want. Now what we're gonna do is leave them in these chunks, and they're gonna finish cooking and become soft and just like fall apart tender in the oven. But now we can put together a little bit of a topping that makes these almost caramelized, glazed if you will. So in this bowl, I'm gonna put some all-purpose flour, just enough to kind of tighten everything up once it's all in there. I'm gonna do some, you guessed it, brown sugar. Now, yes, this is Thanksgiving. This is taking notes from those classic delicious, this is actually like a church cookbook recipe. This is, I think, one my mom has in a cookbook somewhere. And it's one of those really simple ones, so it has some sugar, but not near as much as some of those casseroles do, because I want the sweetness of the sweet potatoes to still come out. Now, into this mixture, I'm also gonna make sure to season it with salt. You need to offset all that sweetness with salt, and that's super important. So we're gonna mix this all together, break up any of those brown sugar pieces, and this is the beauty of it. So that flour, instead of mixing everything together, that flour is gonna coat little nooks and crannies. Then we're gonna pour cream on this, and it's all just gonna bake together, and that flour will just kind of thicken into this beautiful caramel sauce on these potatoes without any much work from us. So I'm just gonna sprinkle these all over the potatoes, no rhyme or reason. And again, this isn't anything about being perfect. This is gonna work in the potatoes as they bake. That's the beauty of it. And we don't have to do anything. So we're just sprinkling this on, make sure to use it all up. If you don't coat all the potatoes, don't worry about that. It creates a sauce. And now we're gonna pour on a little bit of maple syrup. So I'm actually cutting the brown sugar that usually would be on this and doing some maple syrup. Not for health reasons, it's for flavor. I think maple syrup has a different sweetness to it, and I think it offers kind of a nice balance, and I like that. And I don't think it's all just about sugar always, it's about the different flavors we can get from that. So now, the weird part of this is we're gonna pour on some heavy cream. You know what this does? It thickens up, and it almost just acts as this beautiful mixture without having to like make a caramel. So I'm kind of trying to knock over any of the places I put that dry mixture on, but if it's not perfect, don't worry about it. I'm just slowly pouring this all over. It will obviously even out underneath all these too. And I know right now you're thinking, this doesn't look great. Just wait, it all comes together. It's one of those classic casseroles I feel like that does. So I wanna make a streusel type topping for it, and it starts with heavy amount of roasted pecans. And yes, I roasted them first. Even though they're gonna go back in the oven, I think it's important to make sure you start with roasted ones, because in a streusel, they can sometimes get almost soggy with the butter and things we add to it. And this time I wanna make sure they have all that flavor and are a little bit more crisp and dry to begin with, which is why I'm roasting them. So I'm chopping them up irregularly, and then we're gonna make a quick streusel. I'm always someone that loves hand chopping. I think it just works better. So I have my bowl. We're gonna start with these pecans, which as opposed to some streusel toppings, this is very heavy on pecans. That's what I want. We don't need it to be super heavy and laden with the flour and everything else. So have a little bit of flour. We're gonna put that on here. We have some brown sugar. That's, you need the brown sugar in a streusel to give you more of that classic kind of note of it getting that nice kind of slight crust to it. Little bit of salt, which I think is important again. And then a couple flavorings. Now, I'm not making this like a sweet pie, but I am adding a little bit of cinnamon. A little bit of cinnamon. It adds a hint of warmth. It can go savory or sweet. I don't think we have to think of it only as a pie spice. And then a little bit of nutmeg. And again, the nutmeg actually works really well with that heavy cream. And that's what I like. So now I'm just gonna mix this together. We're gonna add in some butter and then make a quick streusel, which is super easy. So it takes a couple seconds really to put that together. Then we're gonna take some butter here. And what do you think we're gonna do with it? We're gonna, just like we would a pastry or anything else, we're gonna cut it into chunks and we're gonna put it right into this mixture. Now, what the butter does, which I think you know already, is it makes it be more of a streusel topping. So that butter will actually work down into the potatoes as they're baking, add some richness, but it will also work into this streusel topping and create all these wonderful little craggy pieces of streusel, which I think is just the iconic part that we want. So we're gonna work this between our thumb and forefingers. Again, heavy on nuts, but it will still form those clumps. So you can see it works into kind of a wet streusel, which is what you want. It holds together slightly, makes big clumps. That's perfect. So we're just gonna sprinkle this all over. And again, that butter in here, which some of the pieces are big, some are small, it's gonna work down into all these craggy spaces. Those pecans are gonna be left on top and be caramelized with the brown sugar. That flour is gonna tighten everything up. And it all just works together to me to be this beautiful, I think much easier personally method than having to mash them all, go through all that work. And I know some of you are gonna say like, what about the marshmallows? You do you. I'm not gonna stop you from doing what you want. But I think this streusel-like topping, that's where it's at for me. So now that we have it on, we're gonna pop this right into the oven, let it bake. Thanksgiving's almost ready. It came out of the oven and I've let it sit for a few minutes. You have to let it sit for like 10 minutes before you can just peel into it. Look, I think it's actually really a looker. I like it. It looks to me just as beautiful, if not more interesting than just a sweet potato mashed casserole. It has all the streusel on top that's gotten crusty and crispy and darkened, and I love that. So this is when you can just serve it up. And I like that it's in pieces, like those bigger chunks. I think that's the best part. And like I said, it makes this like sauce. And we always called it caramel sauce, but look at that sauce coming down. I love that sauce. And that's what is this kind of the magic part of this whole recipe. And I'm quite excited, honestly. You know what I noticed? There's an ever slight hint of maple, and that's what I really like. What's so good about this is, it's sweet. Don't get me wrong, there's sweetness to it. But it's not near as sweet sometimes as some of those casseroles can be, and you get the flavor of that sweet potato coming through, which is only enhanced slightly with a little nutmeg. That cream kind of adds the richness, but really it was only a little bit of cream we put over the whole thing. It's really a delicious mixture, and it's one of my favorite ways to enjoy a sweet potato casserole in kind of a different deconstructed way. So what do I hope you do with this? I hope you find Thanksgiving less stressful. I hope you find dishes that you can make that feel exciting, new, but also nostalgic, traditional, and that's what this one is all about, is bringing you together, enjoy something delicious. Happy Thanksgiving, right? Check my website, wiseguy.com, for this recipe and all my other recipes. They're all on there. And when you share these recipes, it helps me, but it helps everyone see this is super doable. If I can do it, anybody can do this. So enjoy it, have a good Thanksgiving and make something delicious.